Once upon a time, in the idyllic village of Waldo, there lived two neighbors named Hansel and Willie. Hansel had always been a mischievous soul, while Willie was known for his love of nature and all things sustainable. Despite their contrasting personalities, they had managed to maintain a friendly rapport over the years. However, one day, Hansel's mischievous nature got the best of him. Willie had spent years cultivating a thriving worm farm in his backyard. It was his pride and joy, a small ecosystem that produced rich compost for his garden. The worms were like his little helpers, diligently breaking down organic waste and turning it into fertile soil. Willie would often share the fruits of his labor with his neighbors, and his vegetables were the talk of the town. One sunny morning, as the birds chirped and the flowers bloomed, Hansel's mischievous mind concocted a plan. He had heard about Willie's impressive worm farm and couldn't resist the temptation to cause a little chaos. Hansel sneaked into Willie's backyard, his heart pounding with excitement. Carefully, Hansel began to uproot the worm farm, taking extra care not to disturb the wriggling inhabitants. He placed the precious cargo in a large basket and swiftly made his way back to his own yard, a wide grin plastered across his face. Unbeknownst to Hansel, Willie had been observing his garden from his kitchen window. He gasped in shock as he saw Hansel making off with his beloved worm farm. Willie's initial confusion gave way to anger as he realized what had just transpired. Determined to retrieve his worms, Willie hurriedly put on his gardening gloves and rushed after Hansel. Meanwhile, Hansel had returned to his yard and set up the stolen worm farm. He marveled at his successful theft and the chaos it would surely cause. But his satisfaction was short-lived when he noticed a furious Willie charging towards him. "Stop right there, Hansel!" Willie shouted, his voice filled with righteous anger. Caught red-handed, Hansel felt a pang of guilt. He had always enjoyed his playful pranks, but this time he had crossed a line. As Willie reached him, his face flushed with exertion, Hansel sheepishly handed over the basket of worms. "I'm sorry, Willie," Hansel said, his voice filled with remorse. "I got carried away with my mischievous nature, and I didn't think about the consequences of my actions." Willie took a deep breath, trying to calm his anger. He looked at Hansel, who genuinely seemed sorry for what he had done. After a moment of silence, Willie spoke with a stern but forgiving tone. "Hansel, pranks can be fun, but it's important to consider the impact they have on others," he said. "My worm farm is not just a source of compost. It's a labor of love, and those worms are like family to me. I hope you've learned your lesson." Hansel nodded, his eyes downcast. He had indeed learned a valuable lesson about respecting others' property and the consequences of his actions. With forgiveness in his heart, Willie took back the worm farm and returned to his own yard. Hansel watched him, feeling a mixture of guilt and admiration for his neighbor's patience and understanding. From that day forward, Hansel's mischievous nature took on a new form. He channeled his energy into positive pranks that brought joy and laughter to the village, and whenever he caught sight of Willie's worm farm, he couldn't help but smile, remembering the day he learned the importance of respecting others and their passions.